Okay, it'd be great to start just with a little bit about the journey you've had, the career path in terms of how you've arrived and what you've been doing in the world of IT.
Okay. Well, my journey or career path into the world of IT from a marketing standpoint, I guess it was not like many, not a straight line. I started in roles, or I was drawn to, basically in marketing from a storytelling perspective. I love the customer engagement and then the impact of, enterprise IT technology always excited me. So I guess it's for me, it was always interesting the intersection between marketing and IT and demystifying, those solutions and translating it into real world value for the customers was where I felt compelled or I felt like I added value. And then with Avantra, and of course, Avantra's hyper focus on SAP operations, the that piece, and I guess demystifying that for our customers was something that interesting because it's at the heart of everything that big enterprises do. That's what's also challenging and rewarding for me in my current role.
And in terms of just your current role, just tell us a little bit about what it is you do at Avantra. It'd be good to understand.
Yeah, so currently I'm the chief marketing officer. I lead the global strategy, the brand, demand generation, aligning our go-to-market efforts with the needs of our customers, and of course the ever-evolving SAP landscape. The value-driven brand and what we provide to our SAP customers is my current role. And I've been here for 2 months.
Okay. And I'm sure during your sojourn in the IT industry, you have noticed that when it comes to gender balance and DEI issues, that there are ongoing issues, shall we say. And I just wonder your thoughts as to how important it is, do you think, to ensure that women's perspectives are part of the process when it comes to creating a sort of balanced leadership team in terms of what that does for employees and customers, the benefits of that for both employees and customers.
I don't think it's just important. I think it's essential. Diverse leadership reflects the world that we live in and work in, and you know, diverse leadership teams are better equipped to understand and serve a diverse customer base as well. I mean, women, I think it goes without saying, bring a different perspective, lived experiences, and leadership styles, and it drives inclusivity, drives empathy, and innovation. So these are qualities, in my opinion, that every high performing organization needs as part of their leadership team.
Yeah, and you said there's something quite interesting. Not only I suppose do they have sort of empathy with employees, customers, but it also do you think leads to better creating better solutions, innovation within the company? That's an important. Perhaps sometimes people miss that side of things.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I don't, innovation doesn't thrive in echo chambers. So, I mean, diverse teams challenge basic assumptions. They consider edge cases. And ultimately, I think they lead to develop more robust, innovative solutions, which is what's especially needed in the IT space. So when different viewpoints are encouraged and not just encouraged, but also valued, I think the outcome is infinitely better, especially in tech. And it's more, and it's also, I guess, in my opinion, brings a more human-centric approach to tech.
And in terms of the responsibilities, do you think today's generation of women leaders in the IT space, and I guess more generally, when it comes to challenging the stereotypes, do you think they have a sort of an obligation to do that for future generations, or it's been tough enough to get where they've got, so they can kind of relax and say, okay, I've achieved it. Good luck to the next generation. Or do you think they do have some kind of responsibility to help make the future a bit easier?
And yeah, unfortunately, I think we have a huge responsibility. Visibility matters, locking arms, lifting up the next generation. When young women, in my opinion, see other women who look like them and they're leading in tech, it shapes their sense of what's possible. It's just that's human nature. So as women leaders, and I even sometimes it's hard for me to say that about myself, but we need to challenge outdated narratives. We need to mentor openly. We need to, like I said, lift up, advocate for change, and especially systemic change, not just for us, but especially for those coming up behind us.
Yeah, and in terms of the IT sector specifically, when it comes to DEI issues, be good to understand your thoughts as to how important I think you mentioned mentoring there, but you've got mentoring, sponsorship, I guess just transparency in general, and then role model. I mean, sadly, whenever IT is on the news, almost invariably there is what I call a male pale stale person talking about it, which probably isn't great. But just your thoughts, I suppose, as to those sort of things, mentoring, sponsorship, role models, how important they are.
For mentoring and sponsorship and just transparency, they're foundational. I mean, so mentorship for, not just women, but mentorship of the younger generation, especially from a female role, male role, giving them those different perspectives. And sponsorship, it I believe it creates access to that opportunity, right? Access and the ability that when, the strength or the empowerment to get there. So having a role model, somebody to look up to, gives them a sense of belonging. So, and then I guess the transparency to me is one of the most important factors, because whether it's around equity, what it took you to get there, what is the promotion criteria, I guess, how um good or bad, how hard the journey was. It builds a sense of trust, and it's not one single thing that you can do. It's not a single action. It is what you have to live by and what drives every action, every conversation. It's a combination of that consistent, intentional efforts, I guess. It creates lasting change, and it also creates those lasting bonds and that lasting trust in the younger generations, and to really sponsor them to move to the next level.
Okay, so I mean that's some of those are obviously practical things that could be done, but it'd just be good to understand whether you think there are any other sort of approaches, particularly in the, with male-dominated industries such as IT, when it comes to creating a more sort of equitable environment. What sort of things do you think can or should be done to help that process, other than obviously you mentioned some of the things that people can do, sort of, I guess, within an organization, but I suppose more structurally we might be talking.
Well, I mean, I think it's the simplest thing of all, in my opinion, is start by acknowledging that there are imbalances, right? And then taking action. Unfortunately, with everything that's going on right now, I still think that it's of the utmost important and paramount to embed DI goals, leadership accountability, acknowledge, what the true state of the state is, and train those in your organization, have open conversations about unconscious bias, or, you know, and continue to embed those or have those conversations as part of your hiring and promotion practices. And if we don't continue to do that, then those are the types of things, or the types of actions that you need to have embedded in your organization, so you can foster a safe place for growth, for a safe place for more open conversations. Um, Culture really is at the heart of all of this. So culture is shaped by your actions, what you tolerate and what you celebrate. And I can say that's one of the most wonderful things about, my role here at Avantra is, as part of vetting, both the leadership team and the company as a whole, their culture, that what I've just described, is something that they live by. And you don't find that in a lot of organizations. And the caring aspect of their three value props is entirely what I just described, in terms of elevating, promoting diversity, promoting, the different voices, exalting different voices, um, across, gender, race, everything.
And I mean, why do you think it is that far too many businesses still, I mean, both within the IT sector and more generally. And obviously we got, I think you sort of reference the the political noise that's going on as well. Why is it that so many people just fail to understand that lack of a credible DEI strategy means that you're just sort of not going to reach the widest possible customer base? You're not potentially going to attract the best employees because that just what's going wrong that people just don't get what to me and many people is a fairly straightforward message, but for some reason they seem to feel threatened by it, or they think it doesn't make sense. What is it?
Honestly, I wish I knew. I think maybe it's just short-term thinking. Companies are hyper focused on, or some companies, I should say, I guess are more focused on their quarterly metrics. And when you think about it, when you think about what we were talking about and what it does and what it breeds, you know, DI is actually, in my opinion, a growth driver. If I were talking about, marketing metrics, it's not just a checkbox. It's not something that's fashionable. So, an organization, sadly, that fail to invest in that or just ingest it as part of their culture, if they're trying to force it and they're not living it, breathing it, acting it, um, and exuding it, it's to their detriment because it limits their creativity. It alienates future talent. Unfortunately for them, they miss opportunities to connect with broader audiences, more diverse audiences in today's world. I look at DEI as a business strategy because of the way it shapes conversations, the way it empowers creativity, the way it like I said, empowers diverse talent and, encourages and attracts diverse talent.
And I have to ask, and obviously, if you don't feel comfortable, but clearly, what's going on in the States? I mean, there's a sort of significant pushback, and sort of high profile companies, they're all sort of taking down bits off their website and stuff like that. Do you think is this hopefully only a temporary sort of scenario, or do you worry slightly that the tide is well, the tide kind of hasn't gone the right way, but it's already turning back for certain extent. What do you feel about that current situation, I suppose?
It's a fair question, and no, I'm not worried. There's been real progress despite what you're hearing or what you're seeing, and I do think that that's sad that that those levers or those steps are being taken. But there's more women in leadership, and there's more companies than some of the ones that we see that are really deciding that DI is not just a checkbox. It is a way of, it has been fully ingested into their culture, and it's led to more open conversations. But at the same time, I do believe we're at a crossroads. The climate, it does risk turning DEI into that checkbox, that culture war issue. But if we, and for those organizations where I do believe it has fully changed the mindset, the culture, there has been a shift. It's about fairness, it's about opportunity, and at the end of the day, it's about smart business. We and despite the noise, we have a responsibility and obligation to keep pushing forward, to stay grounded in the data, stay grounded in, curiosity, and tell the story, especially from like an Avantra's perspective, that DEI works, however you want to label it, which is, the momentum is there, and we just have to keep protecting it and pushing it and exuding it from an organizational perspective.
I suppose, and also just interested. I mean, presumably though that there is a wrong way of doing DI as well as a right way. So is that if there's any justification for the criticism, is it because there is people just ticking boxes and just saying we need this numbers and not doing it in a proper way, or is that not a fair criticism?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I mean, if you're implementing DEI as like a short-term project or a checkbox, or maybe even calling it DEI, right? So if it's something where it can lead to doing it in that regard or that way can lead to superficial changes. without lasting impact, in my opinion. So for a mind shift or a cultural change like that to actually be effective, it has to be integrated at the core. It has to be part of the core values and not something, to your point, that it's, it looks good or it sounds good. It requires ongoing commitment. It requires ongoing evaluation. And, it should be something that is part of your organization without thought, the same way that, normal operating business practices would be. So, but if it's established as part of your culture and in one of those, and it's part of your goal to make sure that you have diverse voices, however you want to label it, they need to establish clear goals that those are their intentions, and that they intend to have or go after diverse representation or increasing representation in leadership roles, and versus like things like, mandatory training, or to your point, check boxes, things that they have to say, things that have to be there on forms, or this and that and the other. And then, understanding that there has been a way of thinking, and that these are systemic issues. We do need to be cognizant that, for whatever reason, there have been systemic barriers in the past, like, biased recruitment practices or unequal promotion opportunities. Those are real things that have happened. And it's that acknowledgement, not necessarily, forcing, but it's that acknowledgement and that willingness to change, that's crucial. It's crucial to examine that, examine it and try to understand it, so you can really reform organizational structures from the inside out, versus, pushing it down with check boxes or mandates.
And maybe just to finish, I'm wondering what sort of progress you've seen since you've been involved in the IT sector. I'm hoping you've seen some change for the better, and it's less easy perhaps to answer. But where do you think we are on this necessary journey? So and how optimistic are you that progress will continue to be made, so that if we have this, I don't know, if we have this combination in a couple of years' time, would it be solved, or is it a much longer journey? Just, I suppose, your thoughts as to where, have things improved? Where are we now? And, what does the future look like, if that's all right?
I mean, as being in a predominantly male industry, I can say that I've observed meaningful strides. And the representation of, I guess, female leadership has increased in recent years. I believe it was up to about 23-30% in the UK, and just a couple of years ago, which was, I think it's, despite everything that we're hearing right now, I do believe that that challenges do persist, obviously, in this space. But despite this, I think that it is still, I believe that it's taken root, I guess is the best way to describe it. But I also think it's crucial for us to continue fostering, so when I hear the narrative, it actually makes me, it strengthens my resolve to push in the way forward that we're already kind of marching in, because it's fostering those inclusive cultures. It's holding leadership accountable. It's, ensuring that this is something that is ingested and part of the culture. That's going to be the keys to the kingdom, and lead organizational strategies. And I believe that, it's more, I see it as more of a rally cry than a setback, I guess.
And also, I mean, do you think the younger generation, from my experience with my sons, that they seem to, whether it's DEI, sustainability, etc., they get this much more than older generations, and therefore hopefully over time when they hit the workplace and get on, things will improve just because they have a much more open, inclusive, if you like, outlook on life. Is that something to look forward to as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like when we talk about going back to labeling it, I don't even think I don't think that they see it or label it. To me, they they've ingested these values. It's something, it's part of their moral compass. And so I don't, I think for them, they're more likely to be attracted to roles where it fits the narrative that they've grown up with, which is that we're all equal. We can all do everything, boys and girls. We all have that same level of capableness. So I believe as they continue to grow up and as we lift them up, they're going to keep breaking through that glass, and it will be less of a checkbox and just, ways of living.
Yeah, it's been great to chat and some fascinating insights into what's going on in your own sort of experiences. So, Liz or Elizabeth, thank you. So
Either. I'll respond to both. Elizabeth, if my dad's.
like me too, Philip or Phil, whatever, they can call me whatever. But I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much, because I know you've been traveling and stuff. So really.
No, thank you. It's been lovely to chat this morning, and it's definitely a worthwhile conversation that we all need to keep having. So,
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again.
all right, thank you.